Hello and welcome to our very first developer interview here for Infinite Summer 23. I'm very excited for this. We have the super talented studio, Astral Clock Tower Studios, here working on Kristala. Very excited to have this wonderful team here to talk about this game with us today. I would like you guys to introduce yourself here in a moment, and we're going to be talking about the game. And for those of you that don't know what Infinite Summer is, we're doing a month-long event. We're going to be doing developer interviews. We got various creator competitions. We're going to have trailers. This game's trailer is going to be on YouTube as part of our Game Infinite showcase. So there's a lot more to come, but I'm really excited about this. Allie, we're going to start with you. What do you do for the company? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Allie. I'm the founding owner and I'm our producer at Kristala. I'm also like the business manager and resident gap filler. Like I've held almost every role at one point or another, but now I get to just tell everybody else what to do.
I'm Tiffany, obviously co-owner and also lead level design. Oh, you're muted. Whoopsie.
And hello, everybody. I'm Sarah. I am the third owner at Astral Clock Tower Studios, and I'm also our marketing director.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to do these developer interviews. We did a bunch last year for Infinite Summer 22, and this year we're hoping to have even more indie game presence for Infinite Summer. So I'm really excited to have you guys. We're going to be diving into some questions, get to know the game a little bit. First off, for those that don't know in the audience, what is Kristala? What type of game is it? Like, what inspired you to go this route? We would love to just get the whole pitch of what is Kristala.
All right. Kristala is a dark fantasy action RPG that we've been developing in Unreal. Now we're in Unreal 5. We started in Unreal 4. I figure we can go back to the origins of how we came up with the idea. Tiffany and we started the studio back in 2018 when we were in school together working on our bachelor's degrees in game programming. And at the time when we sat down, we had like brainstormed a couple of ideas separately, and then we sat down together and told each other our ideas. And mine was probably too ambitious at the time. So Sarah and Tiffany had come up with this idea for like a cute adventure side scroller kind of game.
Easy.
about a cat. Yeah. About a cat who gains their wings, because Tiffany's a big fan of Fairy Tale, the anime.
The anime Fairy Tale.
So we were like, all right, cool, we're gonna do that. And then my FromSoft fangirl came out, and we ended up making we ended up turning that into like my original idea, but with hers blended together. So it became, the feline based dark fantasy action RPG it is today. So that's how we ended up making it that way. But it just kind of evolved on its own. Like it kind of feel like the world of Kristala, it was almost like so easy to come up with. Like I barely even remember us even deciding on it. It just kind of happened, and then the world was really easy to come up with. Because I mean, when you get to be telling a story of something fantastical, it's always you don't really have the kind of limitations placed on you that you normally would. So it just kind of flowed out easily. And we came up with this whole big, interesting world.
Yep.
You know what I love, though? Like, it's changed so many times, but at the forefront, it's always been like cats and magic.
Yeah.
That's
Cats and magic. Exactly.
Yeah. And we always like to joke too. We're like, oh yeah, the game has a mind of its own. Like it's its own person, and it's grown up. So this is like its grown up version.
Yes.
So
that's a good way to put it.
Way cool. It's like that nerdy child that grew up into someone like really cool and awesome. That's Kristala.
Yeah, that is Kristala. Absolutely.
From what I've seen online on Twitter and such, like the gameplay clips and just some of the snippets of it, it's definitely I really like the vibe and just the atmosphere of the game. Dark fantasy is definitely how I would describe it. Was that always the style? Was that always the mood? Really like dark kind of fantasy style? Is that always the vibe you guys were going for?
There was a time in the very beginning where we thought we would kind of lean into what most cat games do, where they like they're kind of light and funny and cutesy. So we started with that initially. So like we had this idea that you would be traveling to Mount Catnip, and you'd have to fight Mr. Cheese, and He was like
Mount
a
can't get around those,
giant,
yeah.
stinky, farting rat, and that was
Yep.
like the whole, that was the whole premise for a
It was
while.
hilarious. It was
Yeah.
a funny game.
So the base of Kristala was actually a really funny game, really funny and silly. But then we started to realize that there's a lot of stuff like that already. And I don't know, I have this obsession with dark fantasy myself. I love that genre. And so we sat down one day and we were like, maybe it'd be cool if we made this a more serious game, and it would probably set it apart, because most cat games are kind of silly and funny and cute. And not that that's a bad thing. We should still be silly and funny and cute, but maybe we can also do that in a more serious way. So then we sat down and overhauled everything, and that's how we got like the base of what Kristala is today. But like 2018 to 2019, Kristala was a very different game than it is today.
That's
Our
awesome.
cat looked like a fox, and she like bounced around.
She was adorable.
She was pretty cute. Yeah.
So cute.
Also, though, like that, like when we first started, we all were like, Tiffany and Allie were like fresh from school, right? I had never worked in the gaming industry before as a marketer, so we were all just trying to like get our footing too in the industry. So yeah, that first like year and a half was definitely like time for ideating, experimenting, and all that kind of fun stuff, which we needed, I think.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm really glad we did that, because I don't think Kristala could be anywhere near as cool as it is now if we hadn't had a bunch of time to just like kind of mess around and do something silly and like figure it out.
Yeah.
Learn how to do like 20 different jobs,
So
There
true.
few jobs have as many like hats as an indie developer. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like I've talked to like a lot of small team solo devs and indie devs, like the 5 and less teams. Like, it's amazing all that you have to do. And I've been doing this enough to know, like, I have so many people that I know that are developers that just tell me like there's a lot that you have to do if you're in a small team like this. Speaking of time, how long have you guys like been in active development for this game? And you mentioned there was an engine change. Like, approximately how many years into development is Kristala right now?
Okay, so the way that our studio started, we were a bunch of students, and we like gathered a bunch of volunteers. So we spent the early like 2018, 2019 prototyping, like basically creating what the base of Kristala was going to be. And then we were like, okay, we have a pretty good idea. And then we started with a vertical slice. We made it in Unreal 4. It was okay, but we knew that it needed to be better. And when we finally got some funding into the studio, and we were able to hire a few more experienced developers to help us with that, that was probably early 2021. That's when I would say development truly took off. It went from being like a fun student project that a bunch of volunteers were doing together to a serious project. So that's when we dropped everything and really created the vertical slice and base for Kristala. And then we did it all in Unreal Engine 4, and then Unreal Engine 5 came out. So then we had to do it again. But so we've done it. We know that vertical slice very well. But yeah, it's basically done. It'll be done in the next couple of weeks. It's just bug fixing at this point. So we're in full production, in the next, we're already in full production. We're just making fixes of that on the side while also diving into full production. So we've been at it technically since 2018, but I would say most seriously since 2021.
Now, we've heard the term vertical slice a lot in the gaming industry. Now, of course, I know what that is, and you guys know what that is, but there's possibly people in the audience that may not know what a vertical slice is and what goes into making that and transitioning from a vertical slice to like a full game. Could you explain to our audience a little bit of like what a vertical slice is and how you're evolving that into a full-fledged game?
Sure. I like to describe a vertical slice whenever someone asks me about this, in terms of like a loaf of bread. So your whole game is that full loaf, and a vertical slice is that slice as a slice from the bread. And so that means it contains everything that is the essence of that bread, but just in a small package. So a vertical slice of a video game is typically what you would see from a demo when people release a demo. It contains most of the base functionality. It may not be finished, but it at least gives you an idea of what's going to be there in the end, in a compact space. So typically about one level's worth, or a half a level's worth of a game. So a game like ours, it's like we have pretty big world level spaces. So we chose half of a level, made sure it included at least one boss fight, and then you got to see several different enemy types, see what kind of leveling trees and functionality you would have in the game, though not all of it is complete. But you know it's there. You can travel from checkpoint to checkpoint and get a pretty good feel for like the base of the game and what the combat will function like. It's just a really important step, because then you can go, once you have all that base down, you've got the foundation for the rest of the game to build from. So it's not like you make it and then you're like, okay, now I have to go do something different. If you're smart, you just do it with like something that already is going to exist in your game anyway, and then you have all those base functionalities there to build from and flesh out and complete. It's a really good first step.
Let's thank you. That was a great explanation, and you basically got everything there. So I don't need to add on to that. But I wanted to you mentioned the switch to Unreal 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
What did that look like for you guys? Was that hard to do? Did that really delay development, or was it a smooth process? And the other part of that question is how is Unreal 5 helping you make a more beautiful, more powerful game than you couldn't before?
Okay. Well, initially, actually, we were surprised at how easy the jump was. We thought we were going to have to do a lot of things, but I think it took us like a day to take the Unreal 4 build into Unreal 5. But once we got in there, we were like, okay, now everything that exists in this build is so much lower end than it could be because of the technology with Nanite and Lumen. Plus, we have a working agreement with NVIDIA to use some of their unreleased technology that basically works really well in tandem with Lumen and Nanite, and makes it so you have like unlimited lighting, unlimited shadows, and unlimited polys. It's pretty crazy. So we were like, well, we should probably upgrade then because we shouldn't be making what still looks like a UE4 game in UE5. So that's where the real dev time delays came, and why we decided to put the time into it. We completely redid the entire vertical slice level. But we've also gone well beyond that in that time. So at the same time, our level design team has moved on and there's several levels ahead, but the vertical slice level is like the most perfectly fleshed out and detailed so far. And tested. But yeah, so we basically just swapped almost everything. We redid almost every model we were using. The only one that's the same is the character. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. Maybe one of her armor sets. But yeah, like almost everything has changed. So literally, we essentially started over. Like we got in there, we're like, cool, it works. Why don't we make it way cooler? And then we redid it.
Worth it though. Like you can definitely tell the difference.
Oh yeah. If you look at a video from that UE4 build to the UE5 build, it's crazy the difference. It looks incredible.
Everything I've seen about UE4 to UE5 and transitions, games that were being developed, and like it's a fantastic tool. So it's really cool to just see what that looks like. You're not the first development team that I've talked to that are doing the UE4 to UE5 switch and what's gone into that. And that's been similar to what I've been hearing. Like the initial transition's smooth, but when you have UE5, you want it to look like a UE5 game, and UE5 games to just have this certain look to them that's just next level. And it's really cool to see that being integrated into the game. Let's talk about, let's shifting slightly away from the game just a little bit. Let's talk about indie development in general. Being a small indie dev team, what would you say is your greatest challenge? What do you think you have to overcome? What are some development challenges that you might have advice for to other developers who are watching? What are those challenges that you come into that maybe smaller team, like even smaller, like solo dev teams don't run into? What are some of these challenges that you've had to overcome? And that's a long, multifaceted question, but what type of challenges do we face?
Do you guys want me to? It's okay if you want me to answer it again. Sorry, my words just wouldn't come out there. I've got a good answer for it.
You take
go, and then we can add.
Sounds good. So essentially, I'd say one of the biggest things, if I could go back and make changes from some of the stuff that we chose to do. Not that I regret it, because Kristala is freaking awesome and it's my dream game, and I love the way it looks. But one of the things we've gotten a lot, and we've had a really hard time finding a publisher or investor to fund us. And it's been, I think, for a number of reasons. But one of the things I hear regularly is that we were essentially too ambitious. We're trying to get we should have shot smaller, we should have shot lower, we should have kept our team tiny, and we should have asked for a lot less money because you would think that the agency values ambition, but they don't. They value safety.
Yeah.
So it's been hard for us in that respect. That's why we have to try to kickstart ourselves, because it's been years of rejection over the same thing. So if I were to start a studio, it was hard for me not to want to be super ambitious. I mean, like I took what we were doing the simple right thing, and then I was like, let's do the really difficult thing, because that sounds way more fun to me. And it has been, but it's also been considerably more stress. I think if we had just sat down and done that silly little cat game first, and then did Kristala, we can at least say, well, we did do that silly little cat game, and they would decide we were experienced enough and give us what we asked for. That's
Yeah,
really
I was gonna say, I think that's like a part of it too, is that like a bunch of our team members have worked on prior titles, but like together as a studio, this is our first title. And so I think when we're approaching those publishers or investors, they, there's some of that like hesitancy, because they're like, oh, can you deliver? But we're like, look at the vertical slice. We can.
Yes, we
Look
can.
what we've done. Have you
We
played
totally
this?
can.
But
Yeah.
I totally agree. It's frustrating too, because it's yes, this is our first title, but look at it and look at the team that we have. Like, I mean, obviously I'm biased, like we all are, but like Kristala looks amazing. And it would be really cool if we could get, a bunch of money so we can make it even cooler. So
Absolutely.
yeah. But
one thing I would also say about publishers too, just as an advice, one thing that we did that I think was a little bit hurtful to us is that we would present the game to publishers, they would give us feedback, and then we would put all of our efforts into exactly what they said we should do.
Yeah.
And then we would show up, and that's what we cared about. We weren't pushing as much for what gamers might like. We were pushing for what these publishers wanted. And then we would show up to them and they would just say, oh, well, here's a new reason we've decided you're not good enough. And they did it like 5 times, and we wasted time that we could have been spending catering to our audience. So if I were to, that's another thing I would change. I would have gone for one round and then been like, you know what, let's just see what gamers want with it instead.
One thing that stands out to me and that really resonates with me that I think is interesting is I've noticed this gap in the gaming industry that we need to close. And I feel like y'all are in that gap right there, is that I know a lot of solo devs that they do all the work and the type of project that a solo dev can pull off. Like there's going to be outliers. Like I know one solo dev that the game they're making looks like it's being made by 60 people, but those are outliers. Like what one person can realistically pull off is one thing. And then you got on the other end of the spectrum, we see developers who maybe they used to work with AAA, you got all these veterans, and they come together to build a studio of 40 people. And they're like, technically we're indie, but we also have 40 AAA devs here. We're just
and all the connections that come along with that.
Yeah.
And we have these two ends of the spectrum, and we don't. And one thing that I had one developer come to me and said, hey, like, I made my game, it's out, I'm having trouble getting people to know about it. And I'm like, you are one of 1,000 games that release this month. Like it is so hard to get your game seen. And I want more developers. I told that guy what I'm saying, what you guys are already doing is getting more people and bringing developers together to make these medium-sized studios. We don't have enough of those.
Yeah,
we don't have enough.
But yeah, I mean, our team, it varies quite a bit because our team is completely worldwide, totally remote. And cool. We have an intern program. We take on interns and teach them all the time. So our team, like a good chunk of that 30, or, I would say we probably have like 6 or 7 interns right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we're actually considering bringing on like 1 or 2 more. But it's been pretty cool because we can basically sculpt people who already have an education. They usually are right out of school or still in school, and make them exactly what we need them to be, which is why I love teaching noobs. That's another problem, I think, with the industry is that they don't love teaching noobs. And I've been seeing a lot of complaints about that from new grads.
Yeah.
True. Especially in tech, though. Especially in tech. But I think when I was a software developer before this, I had a lot easier time finding entry-level software dev jobs because, I don't know why, but it seems like specifically in gaming, if you wanted to get into AAA, it's pretty hard to get in entry level. And I think a lot of people go into gaming school thinking that that's what they're going to get when they come out, and it's like, no, you got to spend some time in indie first, buddy.
I
It's
think
better
that's
for you
why.
anyway.
Yeah, I think that's why we take on so many interns too, because like we were those people.
Yeah.
Like right out of school, we were like, okay, like you guys require like 5 years of experience. Like, where am I gonna get that? We were like, let's just do our own thing then. Like, let's just do our own thing. This was gonna be like a fun project, that turned into like, this is what we're gonna make this game that's gonna be awesome. But yeah, so we're like, yeah, come to us, like we'll take you in and teach you everything that we can, because we have been you, so we get it.
They're hungry too. That's like,
Yeah.
they want to see everything. They want to
Yeah.
help with everything, like so hands-on and ready to
Mhm.
go. Like, I think
Mhm.
that's my favorite part about working with interns and students fresh from school.
Yeah, agreed. Just like we were. That's why we're here
Yep.
now. But get back to your original question. I will say
No, that was great. I honestly, I don't know why I didn't realize going in that it was a larger but still medium-sized team, and I shot myself in the foot by quantifying what I defined a medium-sized team to be. But there's also, but
it's
to
okay.
be
You
fair,
can cut out what I said when I came in, when I warned you after you said it. You could just cut that and then just keep, and then it's completely fine. We'll just be like, yes, agreed. And then we'll move on. It's fine.
Patchwork.
We'll see how the editing goes. We'll see how the editing.
Yeah. We will not hold it against you. It's okay.
I mean, that's why we do this fun stuff like this comes. That's why we do it. It's an interview, like learning about what these studios look like, what's the size, like some of the stuff that goes into making these games. I want to shed light on how these games are made and what goes into making them, especially where I think there's a need in the medium-sized industry, where we need more games that this is a game that could be played by a lot of people and could be, get seen, and it has the resources and the people power behind it to make it into something really big. So that's why I want people to know more about, because I feel like the average gamer just doesn't know what goes into making games, how long it takes to make games,
100%.
what goes into making them. And
that's why they're so mean.
Well, I think, honestly, one of the biggest detriments right now to that is gamers are being so mistreated by AAA and over and over again. And so it builds this attitude of like a little bit of resentment. Like, I'm going to use a recent example of just how mad I am at Respawn for how Jedi Survivor launched. It is literally one of the worst gaming experiences I've ever had. It was,
I've heard that from other people too.
It was unplayable for 2 weeks. And it crashed constantly, ran terribly, and 10 hours in, it deleted all of my progress.
Oh my God.
Like, it's terrible.
Oh, I'd have cried.
Me too.
It was
wow.
It was not fun. And I think these types of experiences, the fact that PC ports lately have been terrible, we're getting more and more AAA releases that are, and the reason I want to shed light on is, if people learn more about how games are made, they also know that we need to treat developers nice, because 99% of the time, it's not the developers' fault that these situations are happening. Like,
it's the money people.
Exactly. It's the people in the suits at the top that are making these decisions. That's why we have the Cyberpunks, the Jedi Survivors, these scenarios where they go really bad, but it's happening more and more often that gamers don't know. They're just like, I paid money, developer gave me bad game. And that's where I'm trying to.
I've seen a lot of that. Yeah, for sure.
Pull the curtain behind. And in the indie space, it can be seen, because there is so much saturation. Like, I've had that conversation with developers of like, maybe we need to increase scope and take partners, because you just don't have enough people to get this game out the door. And people on the developer side, they want the game to be profitable because they want to get it to enough people. And to do so, we need to desaturate and build that relationship. And I think indie is where that relationship can be mended, because AAA just keeps just doing it wrong. So the indie community has the opportunity to make things right and do it the right way. And having that transparency with our with gamers will help. And that's why I like doing this, is I want gamers to see how games are made and get to know the faces behind it.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I would like to talk about one thing about the future. We talked a little bit about like development history of the game, like what's gone into making it. What can gamers expect moving forward? Do we have a release window? Do we have a release date? Do we have a kind of a roadmap of what the future of Kristala looks like? When can they get their hands on it? Are there going to be betas, demos, that type of thing? I want to talk about the future of Kristala.
Sure. So we have a demo that's going to be released to the public right now. We've been giving keys to, we're going to have a form that's out soon where pretty much anyone can request them. But we're going to do the demo release likely, I think it's Friday. Let me look real quick. Friday, July 14th. After the Steam summer sale ends, because you can't really promote yourself at the same time as a sale going on. So that's when everyone should be able to just go to Steam and get our demo on from our Steam page. In the meantime, though, we'll have a link eventually soon where people can just go sign up, and we'll give them the key. The release date for the full game and how that occurs is very heavily dependent on budget and what we can acquire. So we have a Kickstarter occurring this July, a few days before we make the demo public, most likely. And if the Kickstarter meets its goal or just barely meets the goal and it doesn't meet the goal at all, we'll release a pretty lightweight version of Kristala in early access on PC only in August, so that we can hopefully continue making the game. If we are able to surpass that, though, we would be able to put that off by a bit. The goal is that we could get hopefully enough time to at least release it so that it starts with 4 base clans of Kristala. We believe we can do that within a year. So a year to a year and a half tops. And then you would start with 4 clans, and you get the additional 2 clans afterwards. So the original idea for Kristala was for there to be 6 clans of felines and then 6 level areas, but we'd have to cut it down just a little bit. Now, if we could get a publisher or an investor to give us the different budgets that we want, it would either be, Q1 2025 or Q3 2025, just depending on how big of a scope we get to make the game. I would prefer to release a finished game. I'm going to be honest. I would really prefer, because, it's just like what you were talking about, how gamers are upset about playing unfinished games. And sometimes I think early access in theory is a great idea, but look at Sons of the Forest, for example. They were like, hey, we're not done. We're going to release an early access. And then people were still kind of upset with them for it not being more finished than it was. I also heard people saying that they thought that they had been developing it for something like 7 years. And I was like, I think you're confusing that with The Forest. But that was the first game. But yeah, so, I worry about the implications of early access, but I will say that Kristala is a good game for that. Like the way that we've created the world and the story, it would actually work out okay that way.
Yeah.
It wouldn't ruin the game to be released that way. It would just be preferable if we could give you the whole experience at once rather than having to drag it out.
So I'm actually a very big advocate of the early access model. I've actually written entire articles advocating that AAA should adopt early access as a concept.
They probably should, yeah.
Because the thing is that term acts as like a magical shield that can protect the game, because it's just so important to have that label to protect it, especially when a studio knows the game's not ready and they're putting it out anyways. Putting that out tells gamers it just sets expectations, and it's such a, like I said, it's a magical shield. And I've made the argument that some big AAA titles like Fallout 76, Anthem, Cyberpunk, like some of these really big, like infamous disasters at launch would have been largely mitigated if they had tried to do the early access title. Because I've had that conversation with people. Like I had a friend who bought Cyberpunk a year after launch, and he's like, I don't understand why people didn't like it. It's really good. And I'm like, you bought it for $15 a year later when it's largely okay. I bought it for $60 and it was garbage. And people and they don't understand
that's like a betrayal. It really is.
And it has to do with price too, which actually is going to lead into my second question. Is if the reason early access works is it's not just about setting expectations, but it also flips the way pricing works. Is I'd rather get the $10 discount and be rewarded for playing early, rather than paying full price and be punished for playing early. Because like when I play,
Right.
when I invest in early, I'm being monetized wrong. And they do that where they launch at 60 and it's bad. And then I've seen it where in multiple instances, all of these examples where the game is cut in half within 2 months. And
Right.
by then the game's starting to get a lot better. And all the people who were like, hey, we supported you on day one. Why did we get the garbage product for 60 and they get the good product for 30?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That
especially
makes
when
complete sense.
when you understand that people like gamers wait years for games, waiting
Yeah.
2 months is really not that bad. But like when you do early access, you feel like you're getting in early, you're investing
Yeah.
early, and you're the ones saving money, not
Mhm.
the people who waited. It's the right way to do it. So I'm a huge advocate
Agreed.
for early access.
Mhm.
Not that if you, I mean, like to you said, like you want to release a finished game, and there's absolutely 110% nothing wrong with that. But I also like I've advocated this for before. I've had this conversation with developers before. It's like if you want to put it out, you have to have that transparency to just be like early access, and it can act as a shit. Does it work 100% of the time? No.
No, there's been a few epic
Yeah, there's definitely
failures.
examples where the early access didn't work and it didn't
Yeah.
Yeah.
protect. But I think if you have the transparency, you have the monetization, right? So this is a long rant to transition into my question about like, do we have a set business model for like, is it live service? Is it single player and multiplayer? Like what type of like monetization are we looking at in terms of how do you want to put this into gamers' hands? Now, this of course might change, so don't feel like we're gonna hold you to this answer. But like, do you have an initial like what you want to do in terms of the monetization and the business model?
So it's going to be a premium title. So you pay for the game and you get most of the game. Now we intend to do downloadable content outside of the base release. And so, obviously a lot of games do that these days. So there may be some things like extra armor packs, or if we get to reach the stretch goal where everybody gets to collect dog steeds, then we'll probably do like a dog steed thing. But yeah, right now we're looking at doing things like some special armor sets that you can only get through like the Kickstarter. Then maybe we might want to do like a pack of DLC later so everyone can get access or something,
Mhm.
or at least to the unique ones. Kickstarter people should get their own special one. But essentially the Kristala will be, it also depends on the scope. So like we'd like for it to be a multiplayer game, but we don't know that we're going to be able to afford that, because that requires expanding our team a bit. Either way, we intend to do a PvP arena DLC. So even if we have to do the lightest possible version of Kristala at the lowest budget, after Kristala's out and we're making some money on it, we'll make a PvP arena system so people can take their sweet ass cat warriors and fight them against each other. Because I mean, that just I personally would really enjoy that.
Well, that's good. I mean, we're not getting Overwatch's PvP, so we need something else to do. So as gamers,
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun since Kristala is so magic based too, and like
Yeah.
almost every build is a magic build, and there's so much magic to choose from. On top of
Mhm.
being able to do things like a tank build or an assassin build, etc. So it'd be really cool to see them all pit up against each other.
That's cool. No, I'm definitely very excited for the game. It looks really cool. I wanna thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to help do this interview. Tell our audience a little bit more about the game. I just want to thank you for that. I mean, I think our audience is going to be really excited to learn more about this game. I definitely think they're going to like the trailer. I saw the trailer. I was all for it.
Nice.
And I really think it's gonna be really cool. Before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you to our audience. I hope you're enjoying our Infinite 23 summer event. It's been going really good. I got a lot of cool developers to talk to and games and events. So I'm really excited about this. I want to thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you on the next Game Infinite video.
Right. Bye.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up!